Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. What I'm looking at today is the second season of Netflix's The Umbrella Academy. And if you enjoyed the first season, you're likely to feel pretty much the same about the second. It spends relatively little time rehashing what has come before. If you recall season 1, it ended with an apocalypse, which the Umbrella Academy was unsuccessful in stopping. So Five decides that he's going to go back in time to before it happened and try to stop it. But there's a problem with this. And that problem is that Five doesn't quite get how to do it. So what ends up happening is that every member of the family, I wanted to call them a team, but they're really not. Everyone arrives in the 1960s, though no one at the exact same moment. So, in other words, they're separated by, in some cases, years, and they're building lives. And then Five turns up to upset everything. It's an interesting show, it's a fun show, and one of its strengths is that it's so expertly cast. Every actor works in a role, and I can't speak for anyone else, but I didn't question anyone. The parts they played just worked, and therefore, no matter how outlandish a situation they happen to get themselves in, that worked as well. Another group that makes an appearance in the second season is the Commission, who are the ones who are dispatching agents throughout time to correct what they see as aberrations and things that shouldn't be happening. This is a fascinating organization, and in its depiction, it gets very Mike Mignola-ish, in a sense that the head of the commission is a bit scaly. If you've seen the series, you know what I mean. And it's such a weird touch because very little of the series is actually that on the nose weird. But it doesn't hurt anything. It's actually interesting, and I wish we see more of that. I suspect that it's an expensive effect, and that might have something to do with it, but it's interesting, and it strikes me as very Hellboyish. In fact, if you haven't seen Hellboy: The Golden Army, check that out. It's actually very similar in some ways. So, when all is said and done, the second season of Umbrella Academy is really good, and at 10 episodes, it's pretty brief, which in the past was a serious issue with Netflix. As I was saying, it's quite enjoyable, though I want to emphasize one point in particular, and that's number 5, who's played by Aidan Gallagher. As the people who've seen this series knows, he is a teenager, rather I should say he's an old man. I think he's something like 85 or some such age, in the body of a teenager. And so he acts in a fashion that's atypical of a very young person. So that got me thinking of Shazam, and Gallagher's performance, I think, is exactly how you want to portray a younger person stuck in the body of an older one. He is irritable, he is pushy, he is obnoxious, and it works. He's acting as not necessarily an older person per se, but how an older person would likely act. And it's really well done, and it's enjoyable to watch. He's a really good actor for a start, but it just works so well. Contrast this with Shazam, who is actually a similar character in some respects, namely a young person, well, it's kind of the reverse situation. He is a young person in the body of an older person. And you can see what the producers of it are trying to do, but the performance is uneven, to say the least, because it doesn't resemble the young person it's supposed to be. So it doesn't quite work, at least not for me. While Gallagher, and we also don't particularly know the older person he's supposed to be imitating, but he acts in such a manner, a broad, generalized manner to be sure, but it's effective because I can't speak for you, but I've met quite a few older people, and they are irritable as fuck. They oftentimes do not care because they've been around a while and they're not tolerant of silliness. So his portrayal amplifies those qualities, and it really, really works. Go back to the Umbrella Academy, and I mentioned earlier that they arrived back in the late 1960s, 1963 to be exact, and John F. Kennedy is about to be assassinated in Dallas. And Diego, who has ended up in a lunatic asylum, by the way, takes it upon himself to stop this from happening. Number 5 is somewhat the voice of reason. Well, not really, but he has an agenda, and he'd be damned if anyone gets in the way of it. He tries to stop Diego, and that's a lot what makes this series work so well. It's playful at times. It's also deadly serious at times. It's not any one thing, and that makes it work. And it's also extremely well written. There's some great lines that people say. So it's good. It's really good. It's probably one of the better superhero team shows, to be sure, that you're likely to see on television. And I would actually say it's better than a lot of movies. It's just a good time. It's very much about a family of individuals. It's not a super team by any stretch. These are people with their own agendas, their own interests, who do things for their own benefit. They help each other because they do care. But at the same time, they definitely have their own courses and plans, and they don't often let things get in the way of them. It's a fascinating series. It's a lot of fun. It takes itself seriously, but not too seriously. And in watching it, if the X-Men didn't come to mind, you probably weren't paying attention, because when the X-Men are relaunched in MCU, I get the feeling they're going to look a lot like the Umbrella Academy. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com in review. Do you agree? Disagree? Let me know down below. And since you're there anyway, consider a like or a follow.